So one example of a democratically elected president who then destroyed democracy from within is President Alberto Fujimori of Peru, who was elected in 1990 in a moment when Peruvians were very frustrated with their existing political parties. There was an economic crisis, there was an internal war, and people voted for an outsider. Fujimori was unknown. And he comes into office and he, after a couple of years, starts saying, look, I can't do things, Congress is too corrupt, I need to be able to do stronger things to address our issues. And in 1992, he decided to shut down Congress. And that's known as the self-coup. Fujimori shut down Congress and said that he was calling for a new constitutional committee to draft a new constitution. And then he ruled by decree until the new constitution was written. So to many Peruvians, Fujimori shutting down Congress and rewriting the constitution was actually okay. They were so frustrated with the existing system, with the problems that the country had, that they felt that this might be a way out, a way forward. And in 1995, Fujimori actually got reelected as president under his new constitution. But what many Peruvians didn't understand at the time was that Fujimori had actually installed a mafia-like network in power, where people who were close to Fujimori would get money, would get access, would get power, they would get rewarded, and people who crossed him were punished in different ways. Also, over time, as Fujimori started losing popularity because people just didn't like his policies or for whatever reason, he started taking more and more steps to make sure that even under his new constitution that he'd had written, he could break the rules. So when the Constitutional Tribunal, the equivalent of the Supreme Court, ruled that he could not run for a third term, he removed justices from the tribunal and made sure that he could run again. And this started to upset people. Other things that the administration did that were really problematic also started to surface. They had been forcibly sterilizing thousands of indigenous women, for example, in a horrible, abusive way. And these sorts of things started coming out. So by the time Fujimori decided to run again in 2000, there was a lot of unhappiness, and many people were thinking of voting against him. And when the electoral results came out, international agencies, observers, said that they couldn't certify that they had been free and fair elections. There was some evidence of fraud, and people got very upset and took to the streets in a massive protest. 250,000 people in Lima went out, and it was a big deal. Nonetheless, Fujimori went ahead and took office for a third term, but he didn't last very long. So in 2001, there was a huge scandal in Peru because these videos came to the surface of Fujimori's intelligence chief, his right-hand man, Vladimiro Montesinos, giving piles of cash to opposition politicians, to judges, to owners of the media, of TV stations, as bribes. And it became very clear that this was how Fujimori had been operating. For years, they had been bribing opposition politicians to do what they wanted. And those who hadn't accepted bribes had, in other cases, been sidelined or threatened. Other things had happened. So this scandal with the videos surfacing caused a huge uproar in Peru. They were very blatant and striking to watch. And Fujimori decided to distance himself from Montesinos. He was like, I don't know anything about this. And he appointed a special prosecutor to investigate, who was an independent person, not part of the Attorney General's office, who was respected. And the special prosecutor started turning up more evidence and going to different places. And Fujimori felt the pressure rising, and he finally fled to Japan on a work trip, supposedly, and resigned by fax from there. This really did finally unmask for Peruvians what the Fujimori government had been about. It later turned out that Montesinos and Fujimori had stolen millions and millions of dollars that belonged to Peruvians from their treasury that could have gone to healthcare, to education, to so many things that Peruvians really needed. And instead, they had been putting into their pockets or using as bribes to get what they wanted from others and to maintain power. It can be scary at a time when people in power are seeking to go after those who stand up to them, those who speak out. It can be scary to be the ones who are calling for something better, for the rules to be followed, for a government that is accountable to the people. But it is so important. And if people don't speak out, those officials in government who would be able to themselves stand up to what is happening won't have the space to do so. We all need to pull together. We all need to unite. The lessons from other countries are consistent. That is the way forward. Whatever your ideology, whatever your job, wherever you are in the country, know that if you work with others, there is a way forward, and others have gotten through it. Americans can do so as well.